All right, Guru Brown, welcome to the Cherub Defense Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. So the big part of this podcast we're going to be doing is talking about your history with the martial arts. And Elmer just alluded that you had written about this before, so tell me about that. What kind of history sharing have you done in the past?
Well, I started martial arts when I was very young. My father was a naval officer, and so I moved around a lot, always being the new kid on campus, if you will. He wanted to make sure I could protect myself and stay in sports. And he had a real interest in martial arts himself, being a martial artist as well. So, everywhere we moved, because I was in the military, well, my father was, I should say, he would always enroll me in a different school. So I started doing martial arts when I was 5 years old. I started teaching at a local school here in Dayton when I was 15. And then I actually started my own school when I was 21, back in 1991. And I'm now have been in business now for over 20 years. And I have studied overseas in Indonesia, the Philippines, and Thailand. And I have black belts in 7 styles of martial arts and ranking in 3.
Nice.
I'm sorry, master ranking in 3.
Wow. When did you start traveling abroad? Was it in between that 15 to 21 time period?
No, I think I didn't really start traveling until I was like in my 20s. Mm-hmm. I don't think my parents would have let me go to Thailand in my teens. Nor did I have the money to afford something like that as well.
So you had already been teaching and having
a
successful school.
Yeah, I already had a school and was teaching professionally. My real opportunity to go overseas came through my instruction under Grandmaster in Asano. I started training with him at seminars like in the 80s when I was in high school. Mm-hmm. And through him, he encouraged me to train with some of his great masters in Silat, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, and so on. And he was really my gateway to other instructors, like Master Sawanda, my Silat instructor, and Ajahn Chai, my Muay Thai instructor, and so on. And through that connection with Guru in Asano, I got the opportunity to meet these other masters. And then my first trip was to Indonesia. And I want to say that was in 90-something. Mm-hmm. And the first trip was just for 2 weeks. But I fell in love with the culture and the and the art and my teacher and everything. It was just fantastic, and then I was hooked, and I just continued training from there.
Awesome. Can you please expound on who your instructor? It was Herman Pak Sawanda, right? Pak Sawanda?
Yeah, Guru Besar Pendekar. Herman Sawanda was my Silat master for just about 12 years before his untimely death. And I had a very close relationship with him. He would, when he would come into town to do seminars, he would stay at my house. And I made 3 trips to Indonesia. And the first time we were with the group, second time I was with the group, the third time I went, I just stayed at his house with him. Mm-hmm. I just went by myself. And we had a very tight relationship. And I was part of his Jagabaya program, which was his personal one-on-one disciple program. And I got very high in that system. We had actually gone into business together as well, trying to import weaponry from Indonesia, handcrafted weaponry to sell to Silat and weapon aficionados, if you will, here in the States. And we had a very tight relationship. I'd say Herman Swan was one of my most influential instructors as far as my martial arts go, and as far as my spiritual journey in martial arts as well. He was an important guide in that perspective as well. And then, of course, Master Asano, very big influence. Master Dr. G, my Bondo instructor, big influence. Professor Henzo Gracie, my Jiu-Jitsu instructor, very big influence. Ajahn Chai, my Muay Thai instructor, big instructor. One of my first instructors, Master Tenango, big influence as well. I've had a lot of teachers. I hope I didn't forget any.
Exactly.
There's a lot. I think those are the big ones. Edgar Saliti, Puran Guru, Edgar Saliti, the Lameko system. And we'll give shout out to my dog brothers out there too. Mark, Danny, thank you for your tutelage. So I've had a really unique opportunity because of Master Inasano's openness, and really almost a requirement that to really understand him and his system, to understand the perspective and viewpoint of his instructors, to to bring it up, which is very rare because a lot of times in martial arts, there can be a lot of politics, a lot of drama, and you should be very loyal to your instructor. But most instructors, regretfully, don't really encourage you to study with someone else, which is not true in academia or even in the sports world. You know, if you have a good strength coach, a good running coach, a good passing coach, or whatever, that's okay. It's, you know, in football teams you have multiple coaches helping you achieve your goal and the team's goal. Same thing in school. You would have a history teacher, English teacher, biology teacher, right? And that's okay. But in martial arts, it's sometimes it's frowned upon in certain communities that if you train with another teacher, then the other teacher feels sometimes threatened or whatever. And you know, it depends if you're doing competition and representing the school. I think that's one thing. But if you're not, then that's a different. I've done both. So I think that. And usually if it's a totally different style, that makes it easier, too, for everyone to swallow. Like if I study jiu-jitsu with one guy and then, say, silat with another, they don't really mind that much. But if when you go to train with multiple jiu-jitsu people or multiple silat people, that's when they start thinking, and go, why do you need to go there? You know, but, you know, there are many, like Bruce Lee said, you know, he just said he was not the moon. He was merely a finger pointing to the moon as a guide. And I think it's good to keep your cup empty and continue learning. That's really being a lifelong martial arts practitioner is about, is having that humility and learning and growing constantly, or really you'll stagnate and burn out. I think that's why I'm still teaching. You know, I'm 42 because I'm an active participant in training myself and learning and expanding my knowledge. I think that's why I keep it fresh and fun. And I'm in the trenches with my students, so to speak. I like to wrestle. I like to spar. I like to do technique and stuff and practice with them as much as possible. So it keeps me excited. I think if I just was an armchair teacher, I would be bored. But I really love what I get out of it and what I share with my students in my community.
So I'm sure people will be interested to know about your competitive history, because that's, you know, everybody's UFC. And so talk to us about the competitive history.
Well, I've started out with a lot of karate competitions, doing full contact karate, Koshinkai type stuff. Started with point system karate, then moved into like more full contact continuous karate type stuff. And then I met Arjun Chai, and I fell in love with Muay Thai, and I fell in love with boxing. And this was really in the late 80s, like 89, 88. So I was just out of high school, and at that point I was already competing at a national level in amateur full contact karate and stuff like that. And then started really getting into Muay Thai and kickboxing. Started competing in that. Got to the level where I had over 20 professional fights in Muay Thai. And at the same time, I was really getting into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and competed at a national level in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, both gi and no gi. Really enjoyed that. And then I started getting into full contact stick fighting. Attended a gathering there with the Dog Brothers with Mark Denny. It was fun, very intense.
You're in one of their videos, right?
Yes, the Kali Tudo series. Me and Mark collaborated together on that, on how to use Kali and silat skills in the context of empty hand sport fighting or full contact fighting, like in UFC and stuff. It's a great video, and you can get it at the Dog Brothers website. I think it's dogbrothers.com.
I always wanted to see some of those fighters break out the Kali and silat moves. It's very
right. How do you apply those things and so on? Yeah. And you know, and I think when it comes to martial arts, you really can divide it into three categories. You have traditional martial arts, which are martial arts that reflect the way a culture fought in time based on their weaponry, their environment, their clothing, you know, really their technology. Do they wear full plate mail armor, or were they wearing just a sarong? You know, that makes a big difference in the structure and way you'd fight. And so traditional martial arts can also give us great deals of athleticism. When you practice low stances and traditional technique, you develop a great deal of coordination, strength, flexibility. And if you understand the traditional art, you understand how to apply it now in the 21st century better. So I'm historically and culturally, I'm really a big fan of traditional arts, and that's really a third of our curriculum here. The next third is the sport systems, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, stick fighting. You know, when you play a sport and you play it well, you develop athleticism, You develop a specific skill set and different reflexes. If you're good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you should be good at takedowns and takedown defense, pinning people, escaping pins, doing submissions, escaping. And by playing the game, you develop a great deal of throwing and locking and grappling skills. But I think if you limit yourself to one sport, I think you also can be reflexively caught within that rule set and also that type of athleticism. You might be a very good swimmer, but then you go to run and you might be terrible, or vice versa. You might be a great runner, which happened to me in my first Bondo black belt test. Part of the requirement, we had a fitness test, was to swim. And they said you just have to swim a mile in this lake, and I thought that was going to be a cakewalk because I could run 4 or 5 miles very easily. And it turned out to be very difficult because I hadn't trained for it. You have different body types. So the more sport games you play, the more athleticism you develop, reflexes, range, and skill sets you develop. And in the past, it might have been because of masters not wanting people to study different styles or whatever. But, you would get situations where, they'd say if you study too much, you'll get confused. And my answer to that is, well, did you get confused in high school? You were studying 8 different forms, anywhere from 5 to 8 different, completely different forms of academia, and you're expected to know it. So why can't you do that with martial arts? You should. So traditional martial arts is 1/3. The other third is combat sports. And then really what you guys are really focusing on right now with your program here is self-defense arts. How do you protect yourself when there is no referee or no rules? When there's more than one opponent? When the lights are out, terrorists on the airplane, home invasion, someone's mugging you, and so on. And that's the next third of your training at our here at the Brown Institute that we do is real-life, scenario-based self-defense training. How do you protect yourself when there isn't a referee or a rule or a code of conduct? When you're dealing with adrenal gland response, how do you manage that? What do you say? What about your body posture, your spatial relationships? What do you do and how do you do it? And some schools focus just on that aspect. Other schools focus on just sport fighting or combat sports. And other schools concentrate just on traditional martial arts. But because of my background with all these fantastic masters, I've had the opportunity to see all the different ends of the spectrum, so to speak, and really integrate them into our curriculum here so that, and I think they all complement each other. If I'm protecting myself and my life's in danger, I might use striking skills that I can't really spar, like say an eye strike or a strike to a joint or to the throat or groin or something. Because of my timing and athleticism through my sport fighting, I think my success rate and ability to apply my combat applications is higher. And vice versa. The discipline, coordination, and athleticism I've developed in my traditional martial arts are going to complement my sport structures. Because I can hold a horse stance for 5 minutes, when I'm grappling, I have a very strong base. When I'm in guard, I can really stand up very easily.
It's an interesting triangle.
It's an interesting triangle.
Pay attention to.
And I'm really a universalist, and really it's because I really have to tip my hat again to Master Asano and Master G, both of whom were what I consider universalists, really open-minded teachers. Dr. G always said, no one country has a monopoly on the sun, just like no one system has a monopoly on the truth. Mm-hmm. The sun does truly shine everywhere, and people should see that and recognize it and embrace that idea, because that's part of martial arts too, is that humility and that, hey, it's a growth process. It's a journey, not an end to a means. Of course, it's nice when you have those short-term and long-term goals of successful competition or successful rank promotion or beginning your instructorship and so on. I think that's important for goal setting, but it shouldn't be the end-all for end-all. And you really want to ask yourself, what is your objective in your training? Is it sport competition? Do you want to become a teacher? Do you want to be able to protect yourself? Do you want to compete? I think if you go into your training with those goals in mind, you'll have a more successful rate. You can be able to track your success rate and so on.
Nice. What elements do you think, if you're say they aren't able, people can't go around the Southern Ohio area and go for your school, what elements should a student look for in a good school? A good martial arts or self-defense school? I
think there's well, you can ask the instructor too, what is your emphasis? Is it self-protection? Is it competition? Or are you a traditional martial arts school? And if you ask those questions and they answer truthfully, you'll get a better idea of what they're about. I think it's also very important to observe a teacher teaching. His level of athleticism is important. His knowledge is also important. The way he interacts with his students. Because if you're going to spend the money and the time, it's a big commitment. And I think any good school should offer you an opportunity for a trial period or free class or two so that you can try it for free. You don't just go to Sinclair, I guess you could go to Sinclair University of Dayton and just enroll for a class. But typically you go for a tour of the campus first and do a little research about the school. And that's what you got to do. You have to do research and so on. So really, I think the first is ask yourself, why are you doing this? Are you doing it because you want to protect yourself? You want to get in shape? Are you looking for self-esteem? Do you need stress management? I think you need to really ask yourself some questions and then do your research. But if you live in the Southern Ohio area, the best place to go is Brown Institute of Martial Arts at browninstitute.com. Okay, all right, sorry, I had to put the ad in there. I'm just kidding.
And anyone who listens,
there are very many schools in both the Dayton and Cincinnati area that are very qualified. There really seems to be quite a few schools in the area. I think there's more schools here in Dayton than there are in Columbus. For some reason. I'm not sure about, as far as variety of schools here. I think it's because the Air Force Base and other things has brought in quite a few different groups of people over the years. Right, and different corporations and so on. But I think it's the instructor. You got to look at his accreditation. You should make sure to do a trial period. And before you go, ask yourself what your objectives are, and then ask questions. And a good instructor will not bully you or blow off your questions. He's going to take the time to really talk to you about why you're there, what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to develop yourself, your family, your children, or all the above. Because I think martial arts can be a great adventure for all genders, ages, and sizes of people.
Awesome.
I have a question about, from a student's perspective. You've been a student of martial arts all your life, a majority of it, and you've gotten high levels of those different styles. What do you think is the factor for you to go do that? What does a student have to know inside and mentally and physically, emotionally, spiritually to get to your level?
Well, I think if you look at the college level, a lot of people might just go to a specific trade school because they have a very specific goal. And then once they've achieved that goal, then they're ready to go to work and practice their trade, whether they be a welder or a nurse. Once they have that skill set, they use it, and that's how they make their livelihood and express themselves. Other people will go on to more advanced degrees, sometimes a bachelor's degree, master's degree, or PhD. I would say the majority of people that attend higher education or martial arts or physical fitness, things like that, all have different objectives. And I wouldn't say the majority of people get to the PhD level martial arts, nor do they have to be successful at it, like that nurse practitioner or that welder or that cook. They're all good. Kung Fu really means hard work or applied effort. It's kind of a catch-all phrase here for Chinese martial arts here in America, but in China they don't necessarily, they use that. They usually will call it San Shou, or they'll call it Wing Chun, or Hung Gar or Ten Sin Pai, whatever the structure may be. They have specific names for it, and Gung Fu is usually used as a general word. But I don't think going into it, if you're just a brand new person, you necessarily know that, hey, you're going to go all the way. You might go to college thinking, hey, I want to get in and out of here, and you find something you really love, and you turn out becoming a professor or a PhD, and vice versa. Maybe you get in and say, hey, I hate this. I'm going to do something else and drop out. You don't know. I think going to that martial arts school or going to that self-defense seminar and exploring it and seeing really what you want and why you want to be there, will determine how far you're going to go in it, at least initially. But then as you start to find out the level of fitness, self-confidence, your mental capacity, your physical capacities, and coordination, there's so many mental and physical attributes start to develop, you might find yourself going further. And I would like to see everybody get to their black belt level in any one art or multiple arts. That's my goal, my objective as their coach or teacher. But some people are more content. They want the fitness aspect. They're not interested in completing the course. Like some people just go to college because they want to take some classes in photography. They're really interested in it. It's their art. It's their passion. And they're not interested in the degree. They just want to get good enough to take really good pictures. Maybe even make a living at it. Or vice versa. Some people want to become teachers of photography and share their knowledge with others. And maybe others want to be competitive photographers. I don't know what that would mean, but maybe you are competing, I guess, in a free market if you're trying to submit your work to magazines and or other forms of media. So I don't think there's a real easy answer for that question as far as how do you know. I'm not trying to dissuade people not to try it. And I think that's what's important for many schools is to have a rank structure so that you know you have short-term and long-term goals. You can see your progress. Just like when like at the university level or high school or elementary level, you know when you go from first grade to second grade. It's a big deal. You got through it and you've gotten better. Now you're doing harder and better stuff. And you know you're progressing and getting better. And I think that's true in the martial arts schools. And, different systems and different schools use different criteria for testing. Some of it I find really awesome and very challenging. Some of it's mediocre, and some of it's McDojo. So that's why it's careful to be careful and really look at that criteria and what it represents to you and your abilities.
I think the big thing that the listeners should take away from it is that just doing it and getting in there, and then you'll be able to develop what you were asking about what the drive is. But once you actually start participating, then you can further refine what your goals are and what motivates you to be involved with the martial arts.
And it's like any sport or a lifelong pursuit. I mean, it's more than just a sport to me. Obviously, we talked about the different elements, but it's such a guiding force in my life. But exactly, you're going to have people that are weekend warriors. You're going to have people that are, that love it, like to do it every day. And you're going to have people that completely dedicate themselves to it. And you're going to have people that like, hey, I just need to do a few classes so that I feel confident enough to protect myself. But I feel really in our society, you really owe it to yourself, your family, your tribe, your nation, to have a little bit of training, just to have that psychological edge and to have that physical edge, so that when push comes to shove and the fickle finger of fate has picked you that day, that you can protect yourself, your children, your wife, or your husband, as the case may be, so that you can protect yourself. So doing a crash course in self-defense or self-defense seminar, just to have an exposure to it, so you have some principles and tactics and a few techniques to use, really will give you a significant edge. And so that's a good way to start, to try it.
Try to get that foundational level of emergency response.
Right. I know that, hey, I really, right. Absolutely.
Very cool. Elmer?
I do have a question about, what would you say to a person who's kind of hesitant about, they want to come in, they're like kind of wallflowers, and, they want to go in.
I wouldn't even call them wallflowers. I mean, I think that there's a lot of intimidation involved coming to martial arts schools, and because also there's a lot of macho garbage out there with it. And I think if it's a school that I call Shark Tank, where you just go in there and they beat you up, that's not a good learning environment for most people. Some people thrive on that kind of stuff, but I think that if you are nervous about your safety and so on, what you should consider is private instruction or consultation with a trained instructor or expert, working one-on-one, even for that initial trial period, to get your base and get your foundation in a comfortable environment. That's the best service we can offer you, is one-on-one instruction or semi-private or private instruction, where you really can be in your comfort zone. We can work to your levels of athleticism, because that's another issue. Sometimes maybe you're not in the best shape in your life. That's not a problem. That's what our job is too, is to get you in shape, to give you the self-confidence and the self-discipline to make the right choices about your diet and exercise and so on. That's what we do for a living. So if you're not in shape, that doesn't mean you can't do martial arts. All the more reason to do it, because you have more enemies than just the mugger or rapist who's trying to assault you. You have the enemies of high cholesterol, diabetes, those things. There's there's things in your environment are your enemy. Your greatest enemy is probably yourself, and then of course all the bad guys. And we're going to coach you against all three of those different elements when you learn martial arts. So if you're hesitant to train in a self-defense course or traditional martial arts, combat sports, close quarter combative, and self-defense, whatever area you might be in, or cross-training in multiple systems, take that trial lesson, and if you loved it but you don't think you're there athleticism-wise, fit-wise, or mental fitness, you're not there, then do private lessons.
Yeah.
Scheduled by appointment that can work around your schedule, and you don't have to do a million. Get a foundation of movement, athleticism, and self-confidence, and then boom, move into the group classes or continue with private or do a combination of both. It's up to you and your budget and your time and other things. But I teach several group classes a week, over 50 a week, and do tons of private instruction. And I have students that I encourage them to do both, because private instruction is the best instruction I can do. But then they can reinforce their skills and work with other people that have different kinds of timing and body language and strengths and weaknesses to round out their game and their repertoire of movement and fighting skills and so on by doing the group classes. So it's good to do both. Yeah. But my group classes are awesome. So some of my students have gotten very good without doing private. So you don't have to do private instruction, but
it is the best to that extra level. I mean, I've been taking private lessons at Group Brown for almost 2-3 years now.
Right.
And there's a significant difference between people who go to class and who take private classes in addition to the private lessons. It just adds to the second level. Plus, you create a relationship with your instructor too. When he uses you for lessons, you know what he's thinking, and you can respond the way he wants to teach a lesson better. So you kind of become a better teaching tool for everyone else in the class.
Right. Yes.
I have a question about the social aspects of martial arts. You mentioned group instruction.
Right.
A lot of people are perhaps intimidated by just, making a fool of themselves in front of complete strangers. What would you say to people who want to find sort of a social outlet or a social connection?
We have an absolute blast in class. We have a real high energy, fun atmosphere here in our facility, our dojo. And, we don't teach through intimidation and so on. And there's going to be a point as you progress through the system where you're going to want to be put on the spot, where your skills can be tested psychologically as well as physically. But of course, initially as a beginner, we're not going to put you on the spot and embarrass you. If that was the case, I don't think I'd have very many students at all. I wouldn't be in business for over 20 years. My goal is to improve your self-confidence, improve your mental athleticism, your physical athleticism. So a good school is not going to put you in a position where you feel embarrassed or awkward or so on. A good instructor should not do that. And if you're in a school where you're being bullied essentially like that or pushed around like that, I don't think you're in a very positive or enriching learning environment. Most teachers will recognize people's different levels of abilities and so on and test them and push them accordingly. If you're starting at a low level, that's great. That means we can only grow higher, and I'm going to make you grow higher and test you appropriately, and so on. And the same thing with rank testing and so on. If you want to test, you can here in my school. You don't have to. I don't make it a requirement. But I encourage everyone to do so, because that way you have short-term and long-term goals for your self-development. Because the rank represents your achievement as far as your technical ability, your level of physical and mental fitness, and your ability to apply those skills, and sometimes share those skills or teach those skills as well. So a good school shouldn't do that to you. You should feel comfortable and have fun. When you get into, I think the most challenging environment for someone just to jump into, if they're not physically fit, would be one of the more intense combat sports, like jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai, where if you're not super fit right away and you get on the mat and start wrestling, that can be a scary experience. Having a skilled grappler put you on your butt, pardon my French, put you on your bum, and basically mount you, put you in some kind of pin and sit on you and torque on you for a while. That can be a little overwhelming. You're claustrophobic. Everyone's got a degree of that. That's not the way to learn right off the bat. I'm not encouraging you not to start with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think you should, but it is one of the more demanding ones to start with. So start with in an environment where, if you haven't wrestled before, sparred before, where you're going to work technique and fitness and get in shape and learn your technique, and then slowly be introduced to more continuous forms of free play. I don't think it's a good idea for beginners to just jump right into the ring or right onto the mat and just wrestle. I think you can get in the ring and wrestle right off the bat, but in a controlled environment with an instructor and within the parameters of, say, that particular technique. Like, for instance, if you're doing someone is sitting on your chest like a front mount, okay, let's learn some escapes. Okay, now let's just spar this position so that you learn to feel comfortable with individual positions and so on. Once you get to a certain level, then, spar. And the sooner you can and sooner you feel comfortable, then, go for it. Because I'm a big fan of free play. There's a lot of schools that teach you a lot of technically awesome things, but they don't spar. They don't. They say the technique's too dangerous or it's just dangerous to spar or whatever. And I think that'd be like playing football against cones as opposed to people, or running a basketball play with the cones, and that was something without a defender. It's important to play the games. You don't have to be great at them, though. You don't have to be a great Muay Thai person, great boxer, great wrestler, great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu person to be a good martial artist or to be able to really very effectively protect yourself. But if you play enough of the games that you have a base, a foundation of positional awareness, reflexes for your striking and takedowns and grappling technique, then when you use your close quarter combative skills, it'll fill in the gaps for you. When you start adding the things that you can't do in free play, like percussive joint locking, nasty takedowns, strikes to no strike zones. When you add those things into the equation and the self-confidence that you gained from your free play, then that's good. So it's got it's different for individuals too. I mean, if you've had previous experience or you're already an athlete, if I get a high school wrestler, college wrestler, football player who's already used to contact, high level of athleticism, I'd probably put them on the mat in the ring much quicker than I would somebody who has never done something like that. And that's not any disrespect to any individual. It's just, it is what it is. Right. Yeah, right. And being a good coach or instructor is recognizing people's psychological and physical abilities and putting them where they belong. And that's another part of that, why it's important to work with certified instructors who are going to make sure that you can push you to your limit, but not past your limit where you're going to get injured or hurt or get disgusted with yourself and feel like, hey, I can't do this. We want to make sure you have a successful and fun experience developing your skill set.
Awesome. Elmer, did you want to talk about self-development side now that we're probably a little bit more than halfway through the podcast?
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about the self-development. There's some coaching elements, life coaching elements you've learned. So what have you learned that transferred from martial arts to life itself?
Many things. I mean, when I think about self-discipline, and when you first come into a structured environment and taking classes, the discipline's really coming from your teacher, so to speak. Your teacher says, okay, let's do 30 push-ups. And at first you're like, I can't do 30 push-ups. But, instructor is pushing you, and maybe you do 20, and it's good. And then you get better and better. Before you know it, you're actually passing your own expectations. You're doing 40, you're doing 50 push-ups all of a sudden at a set. And you start to develop the self-confidence that equates self-discipline. Self-discipline has to come from within. And initially you use external factors such as a coach or teacher, martial arts master or whatever, to guide you and to set goals for you and help you achieve those goals. But as you achieve the goals and as you progress through the system, you start to have that inner self-confidence and that drive to push yourself to those goals. And that relates not only to your martial arts abilities and your fighting abilities, but also your diet abilities. To have diet discipline and to eat right, and to live a proper lifestyle. If you drink too much or smoke, it impedes your ability to do martial arts properly. And if you feel good about your martial arts and you're progressing through the system, it gives you more self-discipline to have a more controlled and self-disciplined life. And I think that's super, super important. And also makes you feel good. Yeah. I mean, you guys know it. After a great class, you feel awesome. Yeah. There is such a sense of accomplishment because of your technical ability, your level of fitness, the ability to just hit stuff. It's great for stress management. Yeah. So there are developmentally, the self-discipline and self-confidence you get, I think, are two of the most important external factors that will affect you in everyday life. You'll have more discipline in your intake, you will, and your self-image, and the way you feel good about yourself. But I can't stress enough that I think self-discipline is also equivalent to the way you feel good about yourself. When you make a good decision about yourself, that good decision, it reinforces other decisions that you make. And it's when you blow something off or make a bad decision, then you go, well, I didn't do it this day, so I'll start Monday. And then Monday rolls around and something maybe legitimately comes up or maybe doesn't, but Monday doesn't happen either. And then suddenly you're feeling bad again. And then the negativity just reinforces itself to the point where you're making poor decisions about your training or health or consumption of alcohol, drugs, smoking cigarettes, whatever, and all those negative things. So I think the self-image and self-discipline are two fantastic things too. I think another neat aspect is that if you have been a victim of an abusive relationship or have been sexually assaulted or mugged, you really get a lot taken away from you as far as your self-image, your dignity, and other things. And martial arts can empower you again and give you back your self-image and your self-confidence and the way you feel about yourself, and thus the way you interact with others, and your level of happiness. I mean, I want everyone to live a happy, fulfilled, strong life. I want to walk a warrior all your days. And that's another aspect, too, is just the health aspect. If you study under a good school, it should promote your level of health, your vascular health, your flexibility health, your strength health, your coordination health. You meet some of my masters that are in their 70s and 80s. They move around like a dude in their 30s. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. Like Master Desana, they're so fat, and they're so spry, and they're so full of life. And I want to walk a warrior all my days. So when I'm 80 years old, I don't want to be that crippled guy. I want to be more like Yoda. Right.
Guru Asano says he'd rather was it wear out than rust out?
Right, wear out as opposed to rust out. I think that's a good analogy. And the thing is too, and you will have injuries, and you will face valleys in your life and obstacles. But because of your self-discipline, you'll find another way to do it. Like I just had a knee surgery. I'm still on the floor, on the mat every day, just working around it. There's other things to work on. That's what's so neat about martial arts, and especially our curriculum, because we offer 50 classes a week and 6 different systems of martial arts, is that if my knee's bothering me and I can't kick, well, then I work on my jiu-jitsu. If my jiu-jitsu's not happening, then I work on my Muay Thai. You can always work around it, even within the structure. When you have a knee problem, don't work your knee, work your upper body, work your other things. And that's the neat thing about martial arts. You can never, you should never consider yourself done with your journey.
Right. And you've worked with people who had disabilities, right? People with Down syndrome.
I've worked with people with mental challenges and severe physical handicaps as well. People in wheelchairs, blind, deaf, mentally challenged. And that's very rewarding for me as an instructor. If I can enrich their life or level of fitness or self-image, or heaven forbid, their ability to protect themselves, I think that's really important. And that's why, as running a commercial school that's open to the public, I feel it's my responsibility to work with all peoples of all physical and mental abilities. I don't run just a sport club where it's a fight club where it's just about just fighting, and I think those are great clubs, and I love to go there myself. And I have gone to the schools that would fit that description to have fun for my own training and development. But for my students, I want to produce fighters, but I also want to produce instructors. I also want to produce people that are physically fit and they can just protect themselves. Like I said, there's so many different paths or reasons to study martial arts, like what we were talking about earlier. And at my school, I like to make everyone feel comfortable and get the opportunity to explore their path to self-development through the study of martial arts.
Let's go back to the people you work with disabilities. How has their lives changed because of the training?
Well, I couldn't say on all of them.
Okay.
Because some of them have only trained with me in the short term, others have been with me for a while. But I know for a fact that several of them I've really improved their self-confidence and also really their social ability to communicate with others in some cases. Definitely their ability to protect themselves has improved, their level of fitness. I think if you have a kid with autism or a kid with any kind of mental or physical handicap, I would like to work with them, and or adults as well. Now, depending on their disability, sometimes they can work into the group class, which is, I think, wonderful for them socially, because it's a disciplined but fun and upbeat, controlled environment where they can still develop their physical, mental, and social skills. And or if their disability is pretty bad, then sometimes we have to do it through private instruction, which of course is scheduled by appointment or whatever. But I think it would be very enriching for everybody, whether you're a super athlete or challenged in some way.
How about for you? How have you grown just by teaching the school? And do you think it's important to continue your education?
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on that earlier. Absolutely, Elmer. I think that, and it's been hard for me the last 2 years because I had another child. I have 4 children now. And when you have a wife and 4 kids and 2 dogs, it is harder to go to the places where, I can't just jump on a plane and go to Thailand like I used to, or even though that I couldn't just jump on a plane, I had to be planning in advance because I was still running my school full time. But still, when you don't have the family unit, I'm not complaining either. I'm very very blessed. I love my family. I'm very balanced. I think that it is important, and so whether I have to bring the instructors here, or if I have to fly out to L.A. or New York or wherever the Supermasters are that I need to bring my game up, I think it's important. And I know for a fact that whenever I do go train, I'm on fire. I come back, I want to teach it, I want to train it, I want to do it. So I think continuing education, especially at my level, which is I like to consider, I guess, PhD level, because I've been doing it for so long and I have the master ranking and all this. I think it's very important. If you talk to a doctor, he has to continue training to keep his accreditation because there's so much new medicine and new science coming out. And I think it's true of martial arts. Martial arts now is so advanced with the more MMA training and how they've incorporated fitness training into it. Before you would never, some martial arts instructors will say, you don't need to weight train, they'll slow you down. Yeah. Now you got to weight train. Yeah. And no one would ever say, hey, take these 2 ropes, do the TRX and combine that with your Muay Thai. I mean, but now we do. And it's made us better athletes on all levels. So I think to be a successful instructor and a successful practitioner, you cannot stop learning and growing. And now that my kids are getting a little older, I'm looking very forward to seeing you again, my teacher. So if you're listening, I'm sure you're not. Why would you listen to your students' back pocket? But I miss my teachers very much, and I'm really looking forward to reconnecting with them because the last 2 years have been pretty tough. I also opened my new building. Got married, had kids. All right, she already had. I mean, there was a lot going on for me personally that really consumed me. I kind of had to. Getting married and buying my building here was a big investment for me financially and psychologically and other things. But now that we're established, my kids are a little older. I'm planning on getting right back into the routine for that.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool. Elmer, was there any other topic you wanted to touch on?
Did you?
Let's see. I think that it would be interesting for the listeners to know, you mentioned buying a new building and all of that. What goes into running a martial arts school?
Okay, that's a big thing. That's going to be the next podcast.
Let's start at the very basics. When let's say someone is interested in running just private lessons.
Right.
When you started, how did you get acquainted with the community and with how to get people to come to your school?
Well, since I was already working for an established master here in town, I, as a kid in high school, I kind of started as the janitor, and then I started teaching children, then I was teaching adults. As I progressed up the ladder, I started to pick up different business skills too. You need a certain degree of marketing ability. You need to understand how to get the word out. You have to understand your curriculum and how to market your curriculum to different demographic groups. There's a lot involved. There really is. And I think getting started with private instruction is a good idea because you can get references, you can make more money. So if you're trying to start your martial arts school, that's a good thing. But a good thing to do is to consult with a current person who owns a successful school, such as myself. And I'm definitely available for consultation. So if you're a martial artist out there who's interested in starting his own school, I definitely have a business plan for you that I can consult with you and help you get your school started. Location is important. Your marketing is important. Mm-hmm. Your curriculum is important. Because that's really your product, is your curriculum and how you share that knowledge. The knowledge and sales. And there's a lot of elements to it. And as a, and there's a lot of consulting firms out there too.
Mm-hmm.
MA Success, I think, is one. And there's different billing companies and other things like that out there that have great sales teams. But you, as a martial artist, you might know exactly what your ideal school might be, but that doesn't mean your clients necessarily share your same ideals.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started teaching, my ideals were lots of fighting. I wanted to spar and wrestle, and everyone has to fight. We all have to spar, and that's not necessarily for everybody. A lot of people want to get in shape and learn how to protect themselves, but they're not interested in wrestling for an hour, or sparring, for an hour and a half or something. That's more of the kind of how I started. But as I've matured and started to appreciate all the different levels, and they're truly there. So I think that's a big question. But I think that consulting with a successful school owner is a great way to start your journey if you're interested in opening a martial arts business. And I would love to help you with that. You can reach me at my website, browninstitute.com, and then from there you can email me from the link right there. And of course, if you're interested in martial arts instruction or self-defense instruction, that would be the place to call. So, browninstitute.com.
So let's then say, what are some of can you pick out 3 big challenges that you've had? Let's say, what was the biggest challenge for you when you were starting? And then now, as you're established here and now, what are a couple of the challenges that are ongoing?
Well, I think you're going to have, getting through the different, understanding and developing a student base that's going to, retention. How do you keep them in the curriculum? And part of that's the rank system, the belt structure. But it's got to represent real progress. You can't have a fluffy thing where you just hand the belts away and really they haven't lost weight. They can't kick over their ways. They're not in good shape. Mm-hmm. And you're just handing out the belts to keep them. That's terrible, and I've always been against that. In fact, I probably went too far with that. When I was younger, there was a lot of what I call McDojos that just pass out these belts, and these guys can't fight their way out of a brown paper bag, or do a push-up, and yet they're a black belt.
Right.
Yeah. And the pendulum can swing both ways. I think that because our curriculums are, we're internationally licensed and accredited, and I have such a fantastic background with all these great masters, and I've incorporated all their ideas and curriculums into different systems here in our school. We've always maintained a steady student base. I think my greatest challenge, to be honest with you, is as an individual, I'm obviously an accomplished instructor, but I haven't been the best instructor in instructing staff. Mm-hmm. As you notice here, I have no employees, and both of you guys are up and coming instructors. You're both instructors. You're both very skilled, but I'm kind of I do it all. I'm the master instructor. I'm also the master janitor. Right. It is hard for me, because I love martial arts so much and I'm so busy and doing everything, to delegate. Mm-hmm. And I think if I could do anything right now, and so I can travel and see my other masters, other things more, like I've said, I've been so busy the last 2 years, it would be about expanding my staff, which would also include expanding the capacity of my school. I mean, I can only do so much. I teach 70 hours a week. If I had 2 guys doing another 20 each, that'd be that much more volume, if you will, that much. So it could help my commercial success. I think it could help my lifestyle and so on. If I buckled down and took you guys that are already instructing and working for me on a volunteer basis to turn you into staff and get you on the payroll and get you on whatever. So guess what, guys? You're hired.
There's always something new.
Sure, right. I think that'd be, right.
Yeah.
Because that's what my wife always asks me. She goes, why don't you hire someone? Good being and it's financial too, just starting the family and my building and everything. I've been kind of on the tight end of that for that reason. Because I'm, trying to get some bills paid off. I went to a great deal of debt to start the building and so on. So I paid rent for over 18 years, so it was about time to get into my own building here in 2006. So
you went on the Dave Ramsey plan.
I went on the Dave Ramsey plan. Not to drop names, but absolutely.
What the people should take away is that there's always something more to do. There's always
yes,
going on.
Yes, and I go, and I've, like I said, I incorporated in 1991. I've been in business over 20 years, and I feel there's a lot, even though we have a great curriculum and great classes, and I think you'll see that when you check out our website at browninstitute.com. All right, I'm sorry, no more cheesy website drops. I'm sorry, listeners. But at the same juncture, absolutely. And I'm so inspired by my masters, Querubin Asano and Henzo Gracie, Arson Chai, everyone, they're always continually learning and growing and getting better. Participating, teaching, and so on. And as long as you embrace that, I think you'll have a more fulfilling and successful life.
Awesome. Elmer, is there anything that you would like to end with in the podcast?
I do. For those who are listening to this podcast, if you mention Cherub Defense LLC to Guru Brown, he'll give you a week free of training.
There you go.
So no reason not to call.
Go to browninstitute.com, and thank you again for
thank you guys. I'm excited to share our philosophy and guiding principles for our school and our progression. And I do encourage all you guys to contact me for instruction, and or these guys. They're very competent to get you on your path to self-development and self-protection.